Drink it in, man.
Deep left side carry on. Picks on the block. At the 5. At the 2. At the 1 to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Drink it in, man.
Get up, Stafford throws. It is end zone. Caught! Oh, baby, what a catch! Kenny Galladay, you're a freak! What a catch! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread!
I love the Lions! Say it with me! I love the Lions!
Drink it in, man.
Detroit Koolaid drinkers, thank you so much for joining us on a Friday. I mean, when it's Friday, kind of everybody's favorite day of the week, that I got to have a big old glass of that Honolulu Blue Kool-Aid here for the show.
Drink it in, man.
Side of cornbread.
Cornbread!
But we're here on Friday, and like I said, on the Wednesday show, Logan Lamorandier has back to join us, which I really appreciate, because I was like, I need to talk some draft with you. If we're going to talk free agency, I got to try to get you on so we can have a draft show. So that's what we're going to do today. It's about 40-some days away. I mean, it feels farther away, but every time I hear it, I get excited because it's right around the corner. So, Logan, how you doing here on a Friday? We're about ready to talk some NFL draft.
Oh, doing good. The draft is not that far away. It kind of sneaks up on you this year with so much going on with the Lions early in the offseason. So I feel like I'm a little behind this year where I'm typically at with the draft, but I'm looking forward to diving into things.
I always kind of say it's my favorite event of the year. I've been known to say on the show, this is the biggest offseason in the history of the Detroit Lions. Then, Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia go out and do what they do and ruin the team. But this is a big draft, but just think the next 2 years after this, we're loaded up with picks. We'll have a better roster. We'll have a coach that actually has a pulse, and can go out there and get these guys rolling. I mean, I don't know if you've heard before, but Dan Campbell, he's just sick of what he's seen in Detroit. He's ready to turn it around.
You've had enough of that.
Yes, we have Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, you know what I think you should do? Maybe you should go out and just bite some freaking kneecaps, Dan freaking Campbell.
We're going to bite a kneecap off. We're going to smile at you. We're going to take your other kneecap. We're going to smile at you. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. We're going to be the last one standing. All right? That's going to be the mentality.
And everybody out there that's like, are you going to play that every show? Yes. Yes, I am. I'm going to play that as much as possible because Dan Campbell, as long as he wins football games, is going to be a rock star in this town. So let's not mess around anymore, Logan. Let's get into some draft content. So where I wanted to start was pick number 7. There's a few guys there that I would not move off the spot for, and then there's guys that would be there that I'm not so high on. I'd want to trade down and whatnot. Are there any players that you're just sitting there saying, if that guy's there at 7, I'm turning in the card, I'm good with it? And who are they?
Oh, yeah. So probably, I know this might not be the most popular pick, but Penei Sewell, I think if he's there, he's the type of talent at offensive tackle that you just can't pass up. And I know Taylor Decker is a solid left tackle, but I think the right tackle is becoming equally as important. And to have two of those, your tackles set for the long-term future with two talented players, I just don't think you can pass them up. But really outside of that,
I'm going to give you sound bites, at least for the Penei Sewell. That's the Family Feud, correct? Who else you got?
Quarterbacks, I think Zach Wilson's in that category for me. I know, how I feel about a quarterback at 7, but I think Zach Wilson, if he's somehow still there, I don't think he will be. I think that's a guy you can't pass up. And then obviously Trevor Lawrence, we don't need to go into that though. But, outside of that, there's really not any one player that if there's a trade option to move down and get another future first round pick or something like that, I'd probably be all for it, because at this point it's just getting as many draft picks as possible and increasing your chances to hit on the draft, which is basically the lottery.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but I was going to save it for the show, but I might as well at least bring it up a little bit now. We'll weave it into the show. You did have a mock draft. You had a 3-round mock that came out recently. Is that right, Mr. Lamorandier?
Yeah, yep.
And I believe at 7, you took a guy named Jalen Waddle. Did you or did you not?
Oh, I did, yeah.
My first inclination.
Nope.
I see the guy's speed. I can understand why he may be a game changer, but for its 7, it just doesn't feel right. It's not a home run pick. It's not something where you're running out and getting the jersey. I mean, I'm just not a fan. I mean, again, going back to Family Feud, it'd be maybe a little bit of a this for me. The big old red X to some degree, even though I wouldn't hate it. I mean, of course, I'm going to like the guy if he puts on a Lions uniform. But I'm surprised you didn't have as many names that you would stick at 7, because I'm always for a trade down. I mean, trade down is everybody's favorite option. We're going to talk about it in a minute, all these teams that you possibly could deal down with. But I'm cool to stay at 7 for Jamar Chase. I feel like Jamar Chase is a ball player, and I would love to put him on the Lions and make him my number 1 for the next however many years. So I'm staying there for Jamar Chase. Penei Sewell, we already talked about that. That was a good pick by you.
That is incredible.
Yeah, that was a good pick by you. And then how do you not bring up my guy, Logan? I've fallen in love with this guy. I'm turning in the card. I'm not even thinking about it. His name is Trey Lance. This guy is such a specimen at his pro day. He just looks like the new age quarterback. He's big. He's got a cannon. He wears a visor. He can run. He can throw. He can throw off platform. I mean, Trey Lance.
That is incredible.
Exactly, Jim Rome. That's what I think. I'm taking him. And here's my thing with Trey Lance. I've said it on the previous shows. I'm saying it again, people. My plan if you took Trey Lance at 7 would be you take him. Everybody knows he needs some seasoning, but he's a ball player. So you roll with Jared Goff. You also put in packages for Trey Lance as soon as he's ready, whether that be red zone, short yardage. You put in gadget plays and let him run them. You even let him maybe take a series or two if Goff's having a bad day. I mean, we don't owe Jared Goff like the starting spot with no competition. So imagine that, Logan Lamorandier, competition in the quarterback room. I mean, we haven't had that in about 12 years or so since they took number 9. We've never had anybody there to push him. So I'm taking Trey Lance, and I'm excited to do so. Wilson was on my list, but like you said, I don't expect him to be there. Justin Fields is a player I'm going to consider at 7. I hear all this hate about him and this stupid argument where people are like, but he's from Ohio State. They never have good It doesn't matter. Like, I don't care who else played there. Justin Fields runs like a 4.4, 4.5. He can make throws on rhythm. He just needs to process a little better and needs to have a decent team around him, which the Lions don't have right now. But it doesn't mean you just pass on a guy like Justin Fields because the last 5 quarterbacks from that school haven't been good, or because you don't love him. I mean, that'd be a nice value, I think. So, and Devontae Smith is on my list as well. I don't like him as a slender guy. Benny Blades love him. Why? Probably because he won the Heisman Trophy. But if they turned the card in and said Devontae Smith and he was just that Marvin Harrison for this team for 7 to 10 years, I'd be cool with that too.
Yeah, I mean, and full disclosure, in my mock draft I did, all 4 quarterbacks were gone, as well as Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell. So it was probably like the worst case scenario for the Lions, I felt like. And with Jalen Waddle, I just feel like if you're going to pick a player in the top 10, they need to have some sort of elite measurement of some sorts, or something that differentiates them from players you can get later in the draft. And I think speed is the name of the game in the NFL at this point. And Jalen Waddle, you can see the speed show up on tape. Even when you look at his film, he didn't have many contested catches, but even when there was somehow a defender who kept up with him or it was a poor throw, Jalen Waddle was still able to use his body and adjust well and, catch the ball. So I like Jalen Waddle a little bit more as an NFL prospect than Devonta Smith. And even when they were on the field together this past year, it was Jalen Waddle who was putting up the big numbers. So I at 7, yeah, there are plenty of players I would be fine taking, but there's only a few that I would be like, if there's a trade down opportunity, there's really only a few that I would say, no, I'm not trading down. I'm just taking this guy. And Justin Fields, he's an interesting quarterback because all the talent's there. He's got it all. He's super accurate. It's just the whole processing. It's not Ohio State. It's the offense that he's in where his receivers are always running just wide open. He's always throwing to just wide open players, and that's not going to happen in the NFL. So that's where I am a little bit concerned in that regard, that maybe it was pretty easy at Ohio State for him. And under pressure, he wasn't very good under pressure. And that, again, I want to see quarterbacks that excel when it's tough for them, not just when it's easy, because just about every quarterback in the NFL, when they have time and wide open receivers, they're going to look great. So that's just my hesitation with him. But again, Justin Fields, if he's sitting there at 7 for the Lions, it would be very tough to take him. But I also imagine there's going to be a lot of teams that are chomping at the bit to get to that 7th pick, and it's going to drive up the price tag, and the Lions are going to have a nice trade down offer, which I'd prefer, because that's going to Trey Lance now. I think with him and in quarterbacks in general. And I know there's a tweet that you disagree with me about regarding quarterbacks. I just don't think it's the right time for the Lions to draft the quarterback.
Don't run down Trey Lance. I'm sure you saw the pro day. I mean, that and his tape, and he did it all as a freshman, is really all I need to see from this kid. And like I said, okay, he doesn't look like the normal, pocket passer, but he's used to. That's why I like him even more, because he's got legs. He can run you over. He's a specimen, man. I'm telling you. The only thing that get that kid in trouble is if he just has inaccuracies or he can't, play at the top level. But I think he's going to be a special type talent, no doubt about it. But what I wanted to do was give you some props on your comebacks there for Jalen Waddle. But I thought I'd do it the only way I kind of do it here on the Koolaid Cast, and that's with the sound drop. So I thought I'd let Beetlejuice from the one and only Howard Stern tell you what I thought about your retort there.
Yeah, I understand. I got it in my head, dude.
So there's that. And then I think Jalen Waddle, when he gets going, he can do this to defenders.
I'll put him down to his knees, buddy.
Exactly. Put him down to his knees, buddy. But no, I like what you had to say. I mean, I guess there's only those players that I named that would get me excited. Your Jalen Waddle pick, I'd really have to see it on the football field to see him, get some 50-yard touchdowns, use his speed on a crossing route before I could really buy in. I know he did it at the college level, but he also was hurt a lot. And he doesn't wow me when I watch, other than the speed factor. Whereas these other guys, I mean, you can talk about Devontae Smith's size, and I've done so multiple times, but so silky, so smooth, and just like a guy, one of those guys that can just get open. And like the Lions have had those big bodies that can go up and catch it or can score some touchdowns. But I'd love that guy that just every time you need him to, he's 3 yards open, because he can just cross people up. He can run those routes. Same reason we liked Jerry Jeudy a year ago, just with the way he could run routes, even though I don't like either of them in the top 7 or 10, but I still like him a lot as football players. So that's if we're stuck. For me, it's the guys I mentioned. It's those premier positions, and a couple wideouts that I do like. And I like the names you gave as well. Let's talk about trades. So, we both are proponents of trade downs. The teams I wrote down that I felt were most, possible kind of at this point, I just scribbled a few down. Washington football team, Carolina, possibly the Patriots, Denver, San Francisco. Any other, trade partners jump out to you? I mean, because I did a mock recently, and I feel like I can move down to any pick or move down multiple times and still find football players. So basically any trade back, I'm a proponent of.
Yeah, no, same. I think if there's still a quarterback left on the board at 7, there's going to be those teams like Carolina, pretty much everyone. You hit them all in the head. They're all going to be battling to move up to that 7 spot to get the last quarterback, unless some team is happy with Mac Jones, which, hey, Mac Jones, he basically put up the same numbers as Tua last year. And I know stats lie, but there might be a team that just think Mac Jones is going to be their guy, and maybe they're fine with him falling. But it's really that 7 spot. If there's that Trey Lance type of player that's still available, there's going to be trade down options. I'm pretty confident in that. Although I said the same thing last year, and look what happened.
I hate Mac Jones, to be honest. I don't like him. I don't think he will. If he translates, he'll be like that mid-level to upper bottom tier guy that, yeah, he can throw the ball, but he's never gonna. It's a different ball game now, man. You got to be dynamic with your feet. You got to be able to make plays out off schedule. And I feel like he's a guy, he wants to stand there like a statue and throw it to wide open people. And I just, other than his accuracy and like, yeah, he went to Alabama and stuff, I don't see it really with him. I could be proven wrong, but that's not a guy that excites me whatsoever. So let me ask you this. I know we got to keep this thing moving, but Trey Lance is there at 7. You're definitely looking more to trade out with one of those teams than just take that player.
Oh yeah, because Trey Lance, yeah, you mentioned it. His skill set is amazing. He has it all, but the inaccuracy, that's something that just always doesn't get fixed, and so that's a concern. And I think for the Lions right now, if they were to draft a quarterback this year, the Lions are going to have a very small window under that rookie contract. And I think that rookie contract, it's so important. You look at how many other teams have
Logan theory. Go ahead.
Have gotten to the Super Bowl after they had a strong team, and then they find a way, whether it be trading up to go get the quarterback, and that propels them to the next level. And then once that quarterback starts making money, there's only a couple of quarterbacks in the league that can still make their teams a winning team year in and year out, despite being paid a lot of money and not having a ton of talent around them. And your odds of finding that player in the draft are so low. Even though you like these prospects, the quarterbacks have to be so good once they get that second contract to really pull that team up and put the team on their shoulders to be Super Bowl contenders. And yes, there are a couple quarterbacks out there, a few quarterbacks that can do that. But that's not that many when you consider how many quarterbacks are drafted every year. So to me, it's not the right time. I would much rather the Lions build up a roster, a young developing core in place. When you add that quarterback in, 1, maybe even 2 years down the road of, having a full 4 years of having that cheap rookie QB contract, and you're able to build around it and give yourself the best chances possible. So to me, it's just at a point right now where if you draft Trey Lance, he's a bit of a project. Who knows in year 3 where he'll be at? You'd assume he'd be good by then. But if everything goes perfectly in the next 2 years for Detroit, that gives the Lions a 2 years window before they would probably have to pay Trey Lance if he's truly good. And is he truly good enough where he's going to be able to just basically carry the team on his shoulders while he gets all that money, and you have to make cuts elsewhere, and you're losing draft capital, or the better you are, the lower your draft picks are. And, good teams find a way to still win even with lower draft picks. But I just think there's a plan of attack that teams have taken that have been successful, and that is when they have a solid roster in place and then get the quarterback as the final piece of the puzzle.
Logan, I sat back quietly while I let you get that in again.
I know you hate it.
It's your go-to. And here's the thing. This is what you're going to like. So once you said that a couple times on the show, I got thinking about it. I'm kind of like, yeah, I like the concept but it's kind of like what we're going to get to later about your QB tweet and some of the other stuff. I think it's always like if everything else works out perfectly and in 2 years your team's just absolutely on fire, and then you're just going to put in this quarterback and he's magically going to be great for 4 years making no money. Now, there's lots of issues with that for me, like getting the team up to speed in that time frame, assuming in 2 years there's a perfect guy at your selection that you could take. So this is what I'm going to spin it to you before we get our sponsors in here. We're doing a little bit rapid fired show once again here on the Koolaid Cast. We appreciate having Logan from Sports Illustrated on. Here's my scenario again with Trey Lance. Is like you're acting like I'm saying take him, sit him for 2 years, and then let him loose. What I'm saying is take him, because he's a hell of a prospect at a pick if he's sitting there, and then give him a little time. So maybe the first 4 games or so, it's all Jared Goff. But then, hey, this kid's showing out in practice. All right, let's get him on the football field so we can finally do some of those gadget things or different things that people have to plan for, which has done plenty of other teams well. And then next thing you know, maybe Jared Goff is struggling. Maybe we realize that he's not what we all hoped he would be and come in here. So, and the kid, if he's turning it on, you just slowly turn the keys over, and then you let go of Jared Goff next year, and away we go. If he's coming along a little bit slower and Jared Goff is balling out, you have that luxury. And here, Logan Lammerdeer, are you ready for the kicker of all this? I'm going to sell you right now on this before we take our commercial break. Are you ready?
I guess so. I'll see what you have to say.
If they take Trey Lance right now and they go through all the steps I'm talking about, and for some reason he can't play, and he's from North Dakota State, and he doesn't end up being good, and all of his physical traits fall off the map, and he can't hit the broadside of a barn, you want to know what? We got 2 first-round picks the next 2 years that we could at some point duck in again for another quarterback. So you almost like got a get out of jail free card. But you're also taking the swing on this huge prospect. Did I sell you? Like, there's so many things that make sense that contradict your wait for 2 years and get a perfect guy and drop him in the bucket.
I'm not even saying in 2 years he'll be the perfect guy. I'm just saying that you've seen teams go to the Super Bowl that have the Carson Wentz's and the Jared Goffs of the world. You don't need to even draft the perfect guy if you actually have the team around him in place first. And it gives you a 4-year window compared to maybe a 2-year window with Lance. But yes, it can work both ways. And I'm not saying that if you drafted Trey Lance this year, it couldn't work and the Lions could be in Super Bowl contention in 3 years. I just find that more unlikely. And, to poke holes in my own theory, it might be more difficult to build a complete team than it is to find a good quarterback. So it can go both ways. I would just prefer taking my chances with a 4-year window as opposed to a 2-year window.
I like the 4-year window better than the 2-year window, but let me remind you, 43 touchdowns, no INTs, 1,400 yards or over 1,000 yards on the ground, 14 rushing touchdowns. Like, that's as a freshman, bro. That's like a guy that just showed up on campus and said, "Give me a football, let's go." So, I mean, that and what I saw on his pro day and on his tape does not lie. I'm telling you, he's got something. He just looks the part. He was even cool, calm, and just sort of like, okay, yeah, he missed a few throws, but nobody, like, he just had something that jumped off the page to me. So I'm all on board, as you could tell, with Trey Lance. But I did want to throw this in before. I know we said we were taking our break, but to me, the 2 perfect teams are the San Francisco 49ers. If the Lions don't like Trey Lance, which I know Matt Derry on Lockdown Lions said he had some inside info that they don't like him. Mistake. But anyway, I could see a team like San Francisco loving a player like that. I could see the Washington football team saying, yeah, we have Fitzmagic, but this kid could come in and be our guy, into next year, ready to roll. I mean, those are the 2 teams I think that make the most sense. And I love both of those, dropping down to 12 or dropping down to 19. So I think we're both on the same page that medium trade down, go down to the middle of the first round would really be a perfect scenario.
Oh, yeah. And especially considering if it's for a team trading up to get a quarterback, you usually get a lot more value because there's usually a bidding war and teams are all about trading up for a quarterback. You get a lot more value out of a trade back when it's for a quarterback than at other positions. So this draft, I feel like, defense, it's not very defensive heavy at all in terms of the top prospects. And, maybe that would be a good range to take Micah Parsons if the Lions drop back to 12, if he was still there. Someone of that nature. I think just at a position of need and the value that you're getting in the middle rounds is a lot better than it would be at 7 or the middle of the draft, first round, I should say.
Agree with you there. When we come back from the break, we're going to give some of our favorite names, people to look for in rounds 1, 2, 3. We might even get into the 4th round, throw some names. But when we get back from the break, I want to talk to Logan about this tweet he put out about a quarterback, and we sort of got into it, but we'll mix it up a little bit, as well as we want to talk about his mock draft, give the people who he got and why, give you a little bit of that, and just talk some more drafts. So everybody, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. What's going on, everybody? This is your host, Derek Oakrey of the Detroit Koolaid Cast, and this is normally where I tell you about some of our great sponsors. But today, I want to tell you about my other Lions podcast. It's called Believe in Lions, and that's spelled BLEAV on the Believe Podcasting Network with both myself and Lions legendary safety Benny Blades. Yeah, you know who he is, the hard-hitting safety Benny Blades. Played for the Lions. He also played for the U. You know what it is, the University of Miami, those Miami Hurricanes. He mentions it multiple times a show. Benny loves to talk about his Hurricanes, his Lions, and I love to play this soundbite on the show. We have a ton of fun on that show. We laugh, we joke, we talk Lions. Like I said, he brings up the Hurricanes. I talk about my Michigan Wolverines. It's a really fun show. Benny loves the Lions. He tells great stories from his playing days, as well as we're just rooting on this team. We BLEAV in the Lions. So please go ahead, find it on your favorite podcast platform. Hit that subscribe button and check it out. Share it with a friend. We really appreciate it. So check out Believe. BLEAV and Lions with myself and Benny Blades. Thank you guys so much. Detroit Koolaid drinkers. Thank you so much for listening to our sponsors. We got Anchor Podcast. You want to start your own podcast, go check out Anchor, no doubt about it. Go check out my Believe in Lions with Benny Blades. It's a fun show. I think you guys will really like it. Benny's hilarious, and he brings that player perspective that we love to hear on the podcast. But again, I'm just really excited and thankful that Logan Lamorandier from SI, Sports Illustrated, has come on the show here this week, Wednesday and Friday, and talking Lions with me. So, Logan, you ready to talk a little more draft before we get you out of here for the week?
Oh, show.
Do you got a cup with you? You got a mug? Maybe I could fill you up a little bit before we get going.
Yeah, I got a Guinness right here.
There you go. I mean, that or just Honolulu Blue Kool-Aid might work.
Drink it in, man.
Either one.
Perfect.
But
I need a refill, so we're good.
I'm glad, because you might need a little bit of a sip here, because I'm about to get after you right now, Logan. So again, L Lamorandier on Twitter. 20,000 followers, always putting out good content. I'm always sharing and liking his stuff whenever I can. But you put out this tweet. You said, I would agree to the Lions drafting a quarterback at 7 if you could guarantee that he'll be a Hall of Famer. And that's not realistic. More likely, the quarterback will just be like most other starting quarterbacks that play great, win games until they get the big second contract and losing their supporting cast. So here's my issue with that tweet. This is a classic Logan tweet. Logan's been known to come on the show and I'll ask him a question. He'll give me 50% of one answer, 50% of the other. He's right down the middle. He's got both sides covered. And on that one, I feel like you did the same thing. You would agree getting a QB if I can guarantee you he's in the Hall of Fame. Well, everybody would. But my thing is, the whole thing with drafting quarterbacks is that there's such a premier, and the Lions don't have one long term. And I don't know what their plan is for Jared Goff. I know Brad Holmes loves him, but like, if it's me, I'm willing to take that QB because I don't know if he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but it's worth the risk, as well as it's just such a premier spot. If you hit on it and you have 2 of them, great. If you have 0, well, you better find one ASAP. So we just traded one, but we got a nice haul for him. So I guess my issue with that is just, don't you got to be one side or the other, Logan? You got to be bold and go out and get one, or you got to play the scared game and just say, well, if you can't guarantee me he's going to be incredible, I'll just find a bargain basement bin guy, like you said, or a guy that's good, and then you're worried about losing your whole team, which you said is your concept. So I just don't agree with it, man. I think you got to go all in on quarterbacks and deal with the results.
And I would be all in on a quarterback if Jared Goff wasn't around right now, and that's not a big hindrance or anything where it's like, we have Jared Goff, can't draft a quarterback, but it's more so where just the Lions are at. It goes back to what I was saying earlier a lot, how if he is a good quarterback, but he's not the quarterback that can be like an Aaron Rodgers and consistently win, even when he's taking up a lot of big portion of the salary cap, then I don't think it's worth it for the Lions to take a quarterback this year. And everyone's always like, well, it's such a great quarterback class this year. And it's like, I feel like we say that every other year. It's always like a great quarterback class. And one of the weaker quarterback classes was considered when Mitch Trubisky came out. And you also had Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes in that draft. You have guys like Zach Wilson and Joe Burrow who climb up the charts every year. I'm not too concerned about quarterbacks in the future. I'm just more concerned about the Lions were to draft a quarterback this year and they don't know or aren't super confident that he is going to be a great player, then I don't think the quarterback should be the pick at 7 this year. That's really all I'm saying. That the Hall of Famer thing, yeah, might have been a little over the top. That's why I said it wasn't realistic. But you have to be completely sold on a quarterback this year that he is going to be a great quarterback, as sure as you can be, in order to draft him this year when the Lions aren't going to be winning much of anything or being in contention for playoffs we know this year, at least we think, and probably next year. So again, it's all about the odds. I'm playing the odds here.
But I guess my counterpoint is you never really know. And also it's kind of the perfect time to get a guy, because you're picking at number 7 overall, that if they put, even a bit better product on the field, win a few more games, as well as I just think, the Lions are always going to dictate who they feel is worth it at quarterback. It doesn't really matter what me or you think. They may love a guy, they may not, and that's who they're going to take with no guarantees of him being good or whatever. They're just using their best judgment. So what I'm saying is that if they think their best judgment is to take a guy, no one's guaranteeing them just this amazing career, but they're saying, well, what we know and where we're at as a team and what we think this guy can be, we think it's the right time and the right player to take. And I just think you can't play around with that too much. Like, again, a lot of people always want to wait out. Well, maybe next year be better. Maybe next year you're not picking as high. Maybe you're picking higher, but maybe there's not a guy there. There's all these things in the mix. So I'm just saying, like, quarterbacks, it's hard for me to pass them up because until you found your guy. And once you find your guy, you can go pass up quarterbacks after that. But until you do, you're trying to take bites at the apple to find that Hall of Famer, to find that guy that's going to be good, instead of sitting back. Like, again, I agree with almost every other tweet you put out, but this one I was kind of like, how are you going to find a quarterback if you're always thinking, well, I don't know if he's going to be an all-time great, or I'm not quite for sure. You got to be like, hey, this is a guy that I'm ready to roll the dice on, and he's going to be our guy. And then if he's not, you're going to take the next guy trying to find the next, quality starter in Detroit. That's kind of my approach at it.
Well, for sure. And you're going to eventually, I'm not saying 2 years from now, if the Lions still don't have a quarterback, they shouldn't take a quarterback because it's too risky. I'm saying for this year, I don't like the risk. And when you're picking a player like Trey Lance that, who's to say that the Lions won't have a higher pick next year and there's a better quarterback prospect than Trey Lance? Like, we just don't know. And so for me, it really all boils down to, is this the right time to pick a quarterback? And it goes back to that window argument of I'd rather have 4 years of a rookie quarterback contract compared to 2 years. And that's what it comes down to. But yes, you're going to have to take a chance eventually. I just want to do it right now.
You ready to admit that you just hate Trey Lance here on the show?
I like Trey Lance. I do. I actually like all the quarterbacks to a certain extent. They all have their flaws a little bit, but they're all very talented. The top 4 quarterbacks in this draft all have a ton of talent, and that talent doesn't always equal NFL success, but they're definitely they all have what you look for in a quarterback in terms of arm strength and, having that new style of, escapability out of the pocket and be able to run a little bit. They're nice prospects.
So let me jump in on you. This is Logan doing what Logan does again. You just said a diatribe about you don't like the quarterback, or you're not sure you would take one in this draft, yet you love all the quarterbacks. Well, if you love all the quarterbacks, why would you not take a quarterback? So here's my question. Are you not taking a quarterback because you're just set that Goff is their guy and you want to ride out the 2 years and figure everything out? Or are you not wanting to take one because you don't think any of them are going to be NFL quality for the Detroit Lions in years to come?
So really it's more so, I just don't think it's the right time. It goes right back to it. I don't think it's a good spot to draft a quarterback if they're not completely sold on him. And with Trey Lance, yeah, I mentioned how I like all of his traits, but the accuracy issue, like that scares me. This guy, in order for it to make sense to draft a quarterback this year, he has to be so good when his second contract or when after his rookie contract's up that the Lions are still going to be able to find ways to be in contention for the Super Bowl, even though they're paying a lot of money for the quarterback. It all just keeps revolving around back to that window of I want 4 years over 2.
I just think you're a little too hung up on that because there's plenty of teams
Maybe
in
I
the
am.
Super Bowl
Maybe
that
I
are
am.
paying QBs like 30, 20. What the average for Super Bowl QBs has got to be, anywhere from 25 to 30 million dollars nowadays, if not more. So,
Well,
I mean, it does hamper you, but those are the teams that are winning too because they got the ultimate trigger man, the guy that touched the ball in every offensive play. So like you say, we could go back and forth. I guess like for me, it's just, the Goff thing is the big question mark for me. It's like, I don't know what their plan is for them. I don't know how he's going to play. Like with your plan in like 2 years, you maybe don't address it, but you really know Goff's not your guy. You've paid him a bunch of money and you got really no good plan. You're just hoping that there's either a free agent you can latch on to or a guy in the you're assuming you'll be in the top 10 again, which I just think that's risky business. But I don't know.
So,
we just table this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to put in there. So, yeah, Tom Brady's Tom Brady, Hall of Fame quarterback. He's being paid a good amount, but he's not being paid like elite money. He took a lot of pay cuts. Patrick Mahomes the last 2 years still been on his rookie contract. Yes, he signed that big, huge extension, but that hasn't impacted the cap yet. He's still making rookie money. The few years ago with the Rams, it was Goff on a rookie contract, and once again, Tom Brady. The year before that, it was Tom Brady and Nick Foles / Carson Wentz. And you just like, I feel like all these teams outside of either have a Hall of Fame quarterback or you have a player on a rookie contract. So that's where my head's at. I want to follow the trend. I want to try to implement what other teams have done, but I'm not saying drafting quarterback this year won't work out for the Lions. But again, I want that 4-year window.
Right. Well, good points by you. And the only counter I'll give is that Pat Mahomes sat his whole first year. Second year is when he made his run, and then his third year. Same with Goff. He didn't have a good rookie year at all. Then second, third year he came on. So that fits my Trey Lance thing. Is that by year 2 or 3, he might just be heads and shoulders better than Jared Goff. You roll with him, and you're still getting the window that you just gave examples of. I mean, none of those guys went to the Super Bowl as rookies. Nobody really, leads their team for that whole 4 years like you're hoping for. It's usually like years 2, 3 or 3, 4, you know what I mean? And then they'll get the big payday that scares you to death. So, I mean, like I say, we'll leave it there. I get your side. I also think my side's a little bit aggressive, a little bit more like, bigger swing. But I think the Lions it's going to be real interesting what they do in the draft process as well as at the quarterback position. So, Logan, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell the people a little bit about your mock draft. You did a 3-rounder. I thought you had some really interesting picks, some that I agreed with, some I didn't. Just run that down kind of quickly, player and why you took them there type of thing.
Yeah, so first overall was Jalen Waddle at pick number 7 for the Lions. And unfortunately, just the way the draft fell, all 4 quarterbacks were gone. Jamar Chase, and Penei Sewell were all off the board. So that kind of left you with either, one of the Alabama receivers, Micah Parsons, if you wanted him. So I would have loved to trade down. I didn't do any trades in this mock. So that was Jalen Waddle. He has at least his speed is a difference maker. And if you're going to draft someone in the top 10, they have to have some sort of elite trait that can separate them from the rest of the pack. And that's kind of what I liked with Jalen Waddle. But I do think, it's tough for me to take a receiver at 7 just because the drafts are always so full of receivers that you can get in the mid rounds that can still be good. It's just kind of how the draft fell. At pick 41, it was Zaven Collins, and he's a guy just huge. He's 6'4", 260 pounds. And I think I turned a lot of people off when I said that he would have been a perfect fit for Matt Patricia's scheme. But the thing about Collins is he actually has speed and he can cover. So that's a little bit unique. It's just so rare to see a guy his size do what he does. And if I did have one thing I wanted to see more from film, for how big he is, you think he would just like dominate certain smaller players. And, when it came to tackling, he would just be a stud. He can get better in that aspect of the game, but he's a guy that can cover, and he's also big. He can rush the passer. He can do some blitzing. So I really like that about him. I just thought that was good value in the second round. In the third round, North Dakota State offensive tackle, Dylan Radins, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Guy that's not on a ton of people's, want list, but I just think at offensive tackle, Tyrell Crosby and Hal Vaitai is going to be probably on the chopping block next year, unless he has just a great season this year, probably at guard. Tyrell Crosby is a free agent after the season, and I think the tackle position's super important. And with Radins, it's just one of those things where I do think he needs maybe a little bit time to develop, because he is only 299 pounds. So he's on the lighter side, but he's very athletic, and he has the mentality to be like a mauler in the run game, which is big on the right side, but you also need to be able to pass protect. So if he can just put on some weight, and that's one thing the NFL is very good at doing, when they get guys in the NFL, they can bulk them up pretty good and put on muscle and keep developing these younger players. So it's fine that if he were to sit back a year at one of the premium positions, if you can get a guy who has all the tools to be one of the better tackles in the league and you get him in the third round, I think that's great value. And the tackle class in general is just, there's a lot of good value, guys, because it's a deep tackle class. So I think the Lions should take advantage of that, because they're not really in the position to be overly picky at positions of need. And I think offensive tackle, it might not be a need this year, but it will be next year. And if you can grab one this year, go for it. And then lastly, with the second pick in the third round that they got from the Rams, I went with Patrick Jones, the edge defender from Pittsburgh. And he's another guy who really, you look at him, he's like, oh, this guy has NFL written all over him. He's 6'5", 265 pounds, has a great burst off the line. But much like Radins, he kind of has a little bit of that. He needs to develop more power to his game. Now, Jones, what's concerning about him is anytime you get to the late third round, there's always going to be concerns with the player. It's just his power aspect of his rush. So he has quite a few moves, but his power rushing, converting the speed to power isn't quite there. So that's something that could be maybe coached up. And again, hitting the NFL weight room could help, but he's got the potential to be great on the edge. And the Lions need a pass rush. Trey Flowers and Aquara are both, good pass rushers. I want to say that they're elite. So the Lions have the younger Aquara as well. Maybe we didn't see much from him last year, but you can never have enough edge players in the NFL. And I just liked Patrick Jones, was kind of the way the board fell. I liked his value and his upside, because I'm all for the Lions drafting high potential players and just giving them time to develop, because the Lions frankly have enough time to let these guys develop. They're not in win now mode this year.
Yeah, great stuff there. I mean, everybody, you owe Logan to go read the article or go check out one of his articles, because he broke it down really well there. When I read it, I just kind of had, Jalen Waddle, as you mentioned. I just tend to like to wait on receivers, but because he has that special trait of absolute speed, I could see why it could make some sense. Your second round pick is a guy that I've got here as one of my 4 favorites kind of per round, but I see him sneaking into the bottom of round 1 in a lot of mocks, and that's Collins, who you brought up. I ragged on Jamie Collins on our free agent show, but Zaven Collins is a guy that I watched some tape on, and man, he does everything you mentioned. And the thing that jumped out to me was this guy a couple times was, 15 plus yards downfield, jumping routes, covering people, and making interceptions and plays on the football. So if he can do that and rush off the edge and, like you said, do some things in the middle of your defense, I like him as a player. Your Patrick Jones pick to me was a guy I've had circled as well, just because he looks the part. But my problem with him is like the consistency factor, as well as just between him, Austin Bryant, the 2 Aquaras, Flowers. You got a lot of guys there, but just is any of them going to really be that dominant guy, or are you going to get enough snaps for all those guys? But I do like him as a player. So I liked everybody on your mock. The tackle I didn't know a ton about, so that got got me to not only read it even more, but to go look him up a little bit more. And like say, I'm with you there too. Tackle could be a nice addition. Just I don't think they're set there, and we're going to need to protect our quarterback, whoever it is. So good stuff there. Let's finish out the show with just a couple, maybe a name or two kind of per round. So it's always fun talking draft. We could talk for hours, but in the first round, a couple names I wrote down were Zaven Collins, who you mentioned and I already talked about. And then let me tee this one up. Again, me and you have talked about sometimes, even though we do the research and this and that, we don't always hear all these players' names because we're not watching all these teams every game. But the name comes from a big school, position of need. Jeremiah Owusu Karamoa from Notre Dame, the linebacker. JOK, but this guy is no joke. See what I did there? Kind of JOK.
Okay.
He's a ball player. He's a small guy at linebacker, but again, it's 2021, people. Note to Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. It's 2021. Get a little linebacker that can run around sideline to sideline, cover, and make plays, and that's what this guy does. So those were two names I threw out in the back half of the round that might fit the Lions. And like you said, defenders that you can't find at the top of the round. Who intrigues you in round one that you might want to throw out there for the people?
So Caleb Farley, you actually mentioned him back a month ago when I was on. And the more I've watched him, the more I've kind of sweetened up with him. And now the Lions don't need a corner necessarily. And I do want to give the two young guys in the Lions roster a fair shake at it this year and see how they develop. But you can never have enough covermen in the NFL, just like pass rushers. You can't have enough of them. And to me, just with his size and his athleticism, he's someone who I think has a sky high potential. And he didn't play last year, but his 2019 film, I came away very impressed when I started deep diving. And he's just someone I was like, you know what? If you're trying to take a good player, I would be happy with him. Maybe not so much at 7, but I just really like what he has to offer. Kwity Paye is another one. I think I mentioned on your show previously as well that it's not just a homer pick. I feel like usually I'm more harsh on Michigan players than I am other schools. Yeah, play the music.
There it is. Got to get it in. Not a homer pick, but
yeah. But he's just, again, the athleticism there. And I think if there's one position that translates well to the next level, if you look at all the top pass rushers in the game, they're always in that elite category for athleticism. And that's what Kwity Paye is. And then last, I just want to touch on Rashawn Slater. Some people have talked about him being a guard, maybe just because he doesn't have great length for a tackle, but his athleticism, it's off the charts as well. And again, I'm kind of a sucker when it comes to measurements, because I think it kind of shows the ceiling that these players have. And the Lions for such a long time under Quinn were just drafting high floor, low ceiling type of players. And it just ended up being a bunch of average to below average guys. But hey, they love football and they got great character. I kind of want to get away from that, where I want some real difference makers and some guys that can truly impact the game. And you look at around the league, yes, there's always exceptions, but more often than not, the best players in the league are usually the most athletic as well.
Good stuff there. I mean, you can always count on Logan for the full breakdown, all the info, no doubt about it. I just want to give some rapid fire names here to finish this out. So in the second round, I wrote down Barmore from Alabama as a guy to look at if he makes it there. Moore from Purdue, who we already talked about, gadget player, guy that could add some juice to the offense and be dynamic. And these are in no particular order because Morig, I believe is how you pronounce it, kid out of TCU, safety, is getting a lot of praise, a lot of pub, is either a late first, early second. But I think I saw him even in like a third in a mock. So he's kind of all over the place, but he's a dynamic player, somebody that I'd like to see. So those are a couple second round type targets I wrote down.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of my guys. I also like Joseph Asai from Texas, kind of linebacker edge type of player. Who else? You actually named most of my guys, and that's typically what happens. I feel like when, especially when you're on Twitter a lot, you kind of come across players that other people like as well, and you see certain things. You're like, oh, I understand why they like that player. But yeah, you hit on most of them. I think Samuel Cosme is another guy, offensive tackle from Texas, if he's still floating around in the second round. As I mentioned earlier, that the draft has a ton of tackles, and that's a premier position in the league. And if you can get a tackle in the second round, that becomes a great player. I mean, that's a huge win, because those guys don't come cheap. And if you can get them cheap on a rookie contract for 4 years and they play well, that's a huge bonus to your team's salary cap space.
Logan wants the cheap 4-year studs, everybody, if he hasn't let you know that here on the show, whether it's quarterback or otherwise, and I don't blame him. I'm gonna combo meal my third and fourth round names, and then I'll just let you throw a few. We'll get up out of here. But third round, Elijah Moore at receiver, if he's still there. He's kind of all over the map as well, but he's a target of mine. Quincy Roche. I got to do it for Benny Blades. Hold on. If we're talking about the U, I mean, I got to do it. It's all about that you, baby. He said, Lions are only good when they have a Kane on the roster. So you might want to consider Roche if he's there in the third round. Fourth round, we got Jones the second, who you took in the late third, who I said I like. I see him in the fourth a lot. Marvin Wilson, big old defensive tackle, Florida State, penetrating guy who you said you would like. And then here's this guy. I may be giving him way too much pub, but he went to the University of Pittsburgh. He looks a lot like Aaron Donald. He's the same size as Aaron Donald. He's the 99th player overall on the Draft Network's draft board. Twyman from Pittsburgh is a guy. I doubt he has anywhere near the juice that Donald has or will have his production. But if Brad Holmes could take a guy like that and turn him into Aaron Donald super light or an Aaron Donald type, I would just be ecstatic. So those are a couple names.
Yeah, all good names. I would add Eric Stokes from Georgia, 6'1" cornerback, just very athletic. Again, quarterback isn't a great need, but if he's still floating around, he's got a lot of potential, but he's very raw. And again, it's all about that high potential type playing. Baron Browning, Ohio State, a linebacker. I think he's a do-it-all type of linebacker. Could be floating around in the third round. I feel like his draft stock has kind of been moving up lately. A Lions fan favorite, Jabril Cox, LSU, former North Dakota State guy. Just a really good coverage linebacker, 6'4", a little on the lighter size. He might not be. Some people are saying that they'd be fine with him in the second. I do think as good as coverage linebacker as he is, he might not be the most athletic guy, but you can just tell he understands just route concepts and where to be in zones, and he just has a nose for the football. So really, yeah, outside of those guys you named, there's plenty of players. It's nice because the pro days are starting to happen. So that's another common theme you'll probably find in me is once the pro days start happening, if there's some really good athletes, that's when I really go back and dig into some more film. If I see something maybe in their measurements that I didn't really feel like I saw on film. And it is true that some players just play faster on the field than they do at their pro days or what used to be the combine. Maybe they'll have the combine back next year, but I miss that aspect of this whole process.
Okay, well, note to Logan, the Trey Lance pro day already happened. You might want to go back and watch some more film because this kid's a stud. I'm here to tell you, we've already argued about it here for a while. He's a good football
I saw him miss a few throws too in a scripted performance. You got to make those.
Oh my gosh, Logan's he's tearing people up for their broad jumps and things that this guy can play, and he's put together like a brick house, and he's a sophomore basically. So there it is. So Logan, I love the names you put out. It's been great talking draft. I know we go a little bit longer in the show. You've been real generous with your time. Again, want to plug Sports Illustrated, All Lions, L Lamorandier on Twitter. On the Huge Show, you're on different type of podcasts here and there. You're always tweeting out good stuff. Did I get it all?
Yeah, that's about it. I don't think there's anything else.
He's doing big things, and he's gracious enough to come here on the Koolaid Cast and drink it in about once a month or so. I really appreciate it. So, Logan, appreciate you coming on again, man. I'll catch you in a bit.
Oh, for sure. Looking forward to it.
Everybody, Thank you so much for listening. 2 great shows this week. I mean, you know what we do on the show. Serve up that Detroit Kool-Aid, that Honolulu Blue, and drink it in.
Drink it in, man.
Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. We're out.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions.
Drink it in, man.